one, and now this video I decided to make because I know this is pretty much like a pretty big discussion, especially when it comes around the American Revolution, and it's the question of could the American colonies actually win without the intervention of the French? Now, I think everyone knows that the American Revolution, France was involved in helping fighting Great Britain, and many people say that the reason the American colonies won was because of France. And personally, yeah, I believe that. I actually don't really think the American colonists would have been able to win without France, because a big thing with the American Revolution was the fact that Great Britain was the most powerful army at that time. At that time, Great Britain was the most powerful country ever. Had the most powerful army, navy, and anyone that would decide to stand up against them was foolish. That's very much why at the beginning of the American Revolution, Great Britain really thought, oh, this is going to be easy. We'll crush them very easily. They'll be back to where they were. They'll listen to us again. Great Britain most likely thought that the American Revolution would have lasted at most probably a week. At most it was probably going to be a week, and then all going to be done. Great Britain was probably very cocky at first, being oh, we'll be done in a week, everything's going to be fine. But a lot of battles, a lot of major battles, the American colonists actually lost. And that was actually a big thing with the American Revolution, is the fact that a lot of battles Great Britain actually won. Battle of Bunker Hill was actually one of the biggest ones where, even though they lost, it actually really showed that, the American colonists lost Battle of Bunker Hill, but it was also very much it showed them, hey, we can stand up to Great Britain. But there was many battles that they lost in the American Revolution, and that's actually why George Washington's crossing the Delaware. The Delaware, I don't know why I messed that up, but that's why that was such a big moment, because if let's say the American colonists were winning the war, if George Washington crossed the Delaware, then it's basically just okay, whatever, George Washington did cross the river, who cares? But the reason that was such a big moment, and because it really shows us how great George Washington was because up to that point the American colonists they were losing, and at that point they just declared their independence from Great Britain. They were losing, and it was they had no money, they had no food, they had very little winter clothing, they had very little ammo. So it was very much we just declared our independence from Great Britain, and now we're about to lose to Great Britain and be under them, be under Great Britain again. We're about to lose. And George Washington crossing the Delaware was such a big moment, and the Battle of Trenton was also a big moment, because it not only was a surprise attack on the British, that none of the British soldiers knew that he was going to attack at night, because the rules of engagement was always you fight during the day. That was actually a very big thing with, especially back then, there was rules of engagement with how you fight, and that was actually one thing the American colonists actually did very well. Very well. I cannot speak today, I'm sorry, but that's something they actually did very well, was the fact that they actually they used guerrilla warfare. They used their terrain. They used they would not fight the same way that the British would fight. The British, the Redcoats, they would line up in the roads and fire volley shots one by one, one row at a time. So that way, the first row would fire, and then they would reload, and then the row behind them would fire. The American colonists, they did not do that. They actually they basically just fired. They used guerrilla warfare. They one of the biggest things was actually them attacking the officers. American colonists would actually attack the British officers, which at that time it was very much common knowledge, especially for European warfare. You never attack the like you would never attack the officers. The officers were basically off limits. You don't shoot them. But the American colonists, they went out of their way and they would shoot the officers. Like they would go out of their way and shoot the officers. And so America was very much not playing by the rules. But that's very much why the Battle of Trenton and the crossing of Delaware was so important. And I don't believe that, and like, if I remember correctly, that was actually what made France actually side with the American colonies in the first place, was because of the fact that George Washington like crossed the Delaware and won against Great Britain. So and that made France be like, hey, these guys have a chance of winning. The American colonists, like remember the whole time, like the American Revolution was going on, Benjamin Franklin was actually over in France talking with French diplomats, being like, hey, you guys have to help us. We know you hate Great Britain because of what happened in the French and Indian War. Like, come and help us. And so, and Battle of Trenton was actually and crossing the Delaware was actually very much what made France decide to join. But it's not only just France, but it was also Wilhelm von Steuben. I think I'm pronouncing his name right, but it was basically a German general who he helped train. He helped George Washington train the Continental Army to basically become, instead of just being a group of militia that, frankly, they didn't care about order and military. Wilhelm von Steuben actually trained them to become actual soldiers. And so the Americans, and combine him also with Lafayette, they actually really, Lafayette, Steuben, and George Washington actually really helped form the colonists into an army. But they joined, and then it was because of that French joined, and that's actually when the war started turning for the American colonists, and they actually started winning, because now the American colonists not only had George Washington, but they had the French, they had German generals. So it's very much was it's because of France really why we won, and that's actually that's a big point and all that. And so when people are the American Revolution was the American colonists only won because of France, is they are right. France was a big reason why the American colonists actually won the American Revolution, but I don't believe that they would have actually won if it was just if France never joined. If let's say it was just the American colonists versus the British, I don't think the American colonists would have won, because again, Great Britain was the most powerful army ever, and they had the strongest army, they had the strongest navy, and even at that time, the American colonists did not have any navy. At most, they would get basically pirates to fight the British for them. They did not have American colonists did not have a navy. They didn't even have an army basically, and that's why it actually very great that American colonists were actually able to win, because just because how much they believed in America and how much they did not want to be a part of Great Britain, that they basically fought until the very end. And a lot of them actually thought they were going to lose. Even when they signed the Declaration of Independence, a lot of them actually thought that they were going to lose the war. And this was actually, and they even Benjamin Franklin actually said when they signed the Declaration of Independence, he was let's all hang together, we're all together now, or let's hang together, or we'll hang separately. They all kind of knew that if they lost, they were gonna die, and they very much thought they were gonna lose the American Revolution, and it really because the French why they won. France was a big part of the American Revolution, and really a big reason why American colonists won. And frankly, in my opinion, that's why frankly, in my opinion, to me, France has always been America's closest allies ever since American Revolution, because they have helped America ever since then. And honestly, it's because of the French that the American colonists won the American Revolution. And because even if they were able to even if they were able to like get trained and all that, and have it was very much still the French, like not only the more reinforcements that they got with troops, but also the Navy. The French Navy really helped, especially with like taking out the naval ships and also bombing and also bombing the towns, like the towns full of British soldiers with their cannons. So that very much helped them, and that is very much because of the French that the American Revolution was won. And like frankly, like I do think they would have, like I do think American colonists weren't all bad. Like they weren't just like terrible fighters until the French showed up, but they weren't disciplined. They weren't an army basically. And George Washington tried his best. Like George Washington, like in my opinion, was a fantastic leader, but there was only so much he could actually do with an army that wasn't actually trained to be an army. So the French very much helped him, like when they actually decided to join.